Welcome to Future Proof Business. Smart strategies, real insights, and tools to lead and scale in a fast-changing world. Let's future-proof your success.
I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Jorge Olson. Jorge, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're so welcome.
Great. Can you share a little bit about your background and experience and what is it you do today with the audience?
Sure. My name is Jorge Olson. I was born in Tijuana, and what I do is I am a consultant of sorts in the beverage industry and fast-moving consumer goods. I'm also an author. I write fiction and nonfiction books. For example, I wrote Build Your Beverage Empire, Wholesale MBA. My last book to be published was Marketing Karma. I also write science fiction and fantasy. And my passion is creativity, how to use it in your life, how to use it in your business, how to use it in getting funding, sending companies public, etc.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. So, like you mentioned, like you're originally from Mexico, but now living in the United States. What was it like making that transition here? Do you speak English growing up, or was it kind of like difficult, like learning the language? And it's a big culture difference. The last time we spoke, you mentioned to me, I think like you were drawing water out of a well at one point,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes. Yes. I grew up in what we would consider very poor circumstances. Back then, I didn't know how poor we really were because we had love, we had books, we had other things. What we did not have is running water, electricity, and washer dryers, cable, TV, things like that. So I had to walk about 2 blocks to get water in buckets since I was 10 years old. And then I started carrying very little water because I could only fill the bucket about a quarter. And as I grew older, I was able to get more water. So that was a way of gauging my strength when I was a little boy. But that became a driver because one of my goals in life was to get water and electricity and to retire my mom and my grandma. So those were my big economic life goals, let's say. And the transition to the US was like this. Because I lived in a border town, this is Tijuana, across the border from San Diego in the US. I had access to ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, which is local television, because the antennas for these stations are actually in Tijuana, not in San Diego. Same with the radio. I had 91X and other radio stations that are US radio stations that played music from Tijuana. The antennas were in Tijuana. So I listened to Mexican music, but I also listened to English and American bands, Australian bands, etc. Back then, bands like Depeche Mode, In Excess, The Cure were some of my favorite, Tears for Fears, etc. So I grew up with these bands since I was in 6th grade. I grew up watching cartoons in English, and I learned to speak English watching cartoons with the few classes that are taught in schools. We had an English class in, I think, 6th grade and forward. But I really learned watching television and then movies. My mom would take me every week to see the double feature movies that we had back then. So every single weekend, I had 2 movies that I watched with my mom in English. My mom also had a rule. Every time we get in the car, we only speak English. Even though my mom wasn't fluent in English, she knew more than I did. And the struggle to get the words out is how I trained my brain. Now, Daniel, when I came to the US, I came for college. So I crossed the border every day. I didn't move to the US, I would cross. This is after I discovered I was a US citizen because I didn't know. But because my father was an American citizen, I got citizenship through him. And when I decided to come for college, yes, I had several culture shocks. And the English changed because I was accustomed to listening in English, not writing or speaking in English. So I was already competing in speech in Spanish and writing articles. I've been writing articles and stories since I was 12. So I was very fluent in the art of writing. My mom later became a teacher of literature and philosophy when she graduated college later in life. I was 12 or 13 when she graduated college. So I had the Spanish and writing background. The English was very difficult for me. To write in English was very difficult. 90% of my books are in English. I've only written one book in Spanish, which is also available in English, but I wrote it in Spanish. It's for entrepreneurs who are just getting started. It's to change the mindset. So the writing was difficult. And then I had a delay in my speaking because I was translating everything. So I had a 3 or 4 second delay in every conversation. Luckily for me, a lot of my friends came to college in the US, so I was able to speak Spanish most of the time. And then I really practiced my English with teachers because when I was passionate about a class, this was mostly art. I was passionate more about art than more than business. So I spent a lot of time with my art professors speaking about art, philosophy, photography, branding. So I practiced my English not with students, but actually with teachers. Let me tell you a big culture shock that you're going to find interesting. In American culture, especially in young American culture, and I was a young man, I started seeing in the movies that the characters could not say I love you to one another. And this was a central theme of television shows and movies. And I thought that was very odd because in Mexico, in my culture, you tell everybody you love them. You tell your male friends, you tell your female friends, you tell your girlfriend, you tell your mom, you hug and you kiss everybody. It's just good manners. If you don't do it, you get one of these slaps in the back of your head because you have to go one by one, give everybody a kiss and a hug when you come into a room and when you get out. And then with your close family, which means cousins, aunts, uncles, you have to tell that you love them. So then I came to the US and I didn't understand why the protagonist could not say to the girl that he loved them and he was struggling with this. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. What is this movie about?
Yeah, that's definitely really different. Did you eventually get used to it, or does it still hurt you? Like,
It's
I'm
still
like,
odd. It's still odd. I still see movies and I see even comedians on stage saying, "Can you believe this? This guy told me he loved me." And I'm like, yeah. Was he Mexican?
yeah, it definitely has probably different connotations.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, 'cause you mentioned something that you like to bring creativity to the table. But yet, from the experiences you tell me, you've done a lot of work like in business management and leadership. Because business management, in my mind, in my opinion, like any type of management or leadership is more left brain. There's a lot of organizing to do,
Yes.
a lot of logic. It has to be logic. There has to be like a reason, like a purpose.
Yes.
So how do you bring in creativity to something that's really logic and left brain braced?
Yes. Yes. I've been an executive since I was in my 20s. So I was vice president of marketing at 26 and CEO of US operations at 28. So I've been in the corner office for a long time, or I was. And I've been once in a while, I'll go back. I've launched 5 companies that went public. So I had to be the executive for those companies. And yes, systems are very big. So let's call this whole thing systems, the logical part. And the systems part I learned in my first job, which was as a software consultant. So I learned systems, how to apply systems, how to think logically. I also learned programming in high school. So that taught me the systems and logic. Now, in philosophy, there's also a lot of logic. So I've been studying logic since I was about 13 years old because my mom made me. Now, this is traditional Greek logic. And then from there, all of the theories of logic. And that applies easily towards business and towards systems. And nowadays, it's all about systems. And one of the main failures that I see in leadership is lack of systems. For example, let's say that you bring somebody on board. You're going to hire somebody. It doesn't matter if you're a small entrepreneur hiring your first employee or if you are a Fortune 500. You have to see the hiring. So I'm going to take the creativity out first. You have to see the hiring as a logical program. Like if you're programming software, if one of the lines of code doesn't work, you're going to run the program. Back in the day when we were learning programming, you had to run very basic programs. You started with 10 lines of code, then 20 lines of code. And back then you had to run a little code just to print, right? With the first generation computers. If you have a command that was wrong, you would get an error. So think of it like that. You're giving instructions. And the way I learned was my first software teacher, programming teacher told me, write down how you change a tire. Right? So you just got a flat, you already moved to the road and start. And then the kids would go, I open the door, I get down and I change the tire. And he's like, what, but where, how, where's the equipment? Oh yeah, I go to the trunk, I get the spare and I change the tire. No, tell me how you open the door. Is it locked or unlocked? Is it a lever? You have to unlock it by hand. Does it have power locks? Do you open the trunk with the key? Do you push a button to open the trunk? Right? Is the spare tire a full tire? Is it a donut? How many screws? How are you going to change them? Do you go right or left? Do you have the torque? Can you perform it with your upper body to perform the torque? You have to jump on it. I remember jumping on it to change a tire when I was a kid. The jack, what type of jack is it? Where are you going to position it? Are you going to put like a safety block before you oh, okay. So you start thinking on those terms. If you're missing one of those, he would stop you. And this is, you wrote it down. No cop, right? This is not a program. You would write it down. And then he will tell you all of the holes in your reasoning. So apply that to hiring an employee. From putting an ad, what type of ad are you putting on whatever job searching platform you use, or on Craigslist or whatever you use to hire an employee, LinkedIn or whatever you use? Are you copying somebody else's? That means you're going to get an average employee. Or are you doing a spectacular piece of copywriting for your ad, right? And then you go through all of this exercise. Then when you hire them, right? Once you hire them and you get the superstar, because you wrote a superstar ad for a superstar employee. Once you get them, what is your onboarding process? Because onboarding takes about a year. And then people go, what? That's nuts. Well, no wonder you're losing employees. No wonder you have average employees or below average employees. It's not the employee, it's you. So I see this all the time and I've seen it in my companies where you hire an employee and you expect them to learn on the job or by themselves instead of having a mentor, somebody to mirror, some videos to learn from the videos first, or books or booklets, case studies. How do you measure success in your company? Simple things like that are all logic based. So that's the way I use logic in systems. Now I use it for taking companies public, for funding companies. I've raised over $100 million. I use systems for direct response marketing, getting leads for my business, for selling beverages. Now, let's add the creative component to these systems. To write that killer copy to attract that super employee, you will need creativity. To onboard them correctly and keep them motivated, you will need creativity. And this is how you start injecting creativity into any situation. I think there's a misconception about creativity and how it works and how you implement it with your business. My bachelor's is in arts. I switched from business management to art because I discovered when I was a student and I was almost ready to graduate from the business school. There was an Just to enter into the business school at San Diego State back in the day, there was an exam because it was tight and so many people from all over the world wanted to get in. You had to take an exam. So I passed the exam, I got in. It was not easy. And then I dropped out and went into the art school because all of the training was for me to be an employee. And I wanted to be an executive or business owner. And there was no training for that. My passion is art and creativity. So I said, I'm just going to do what I like and I'm going to do business on my own. I'm going to learn it on the job. And I did because I became an executive with mentors, not by myself. I had mentors that helped me become an executive, but I credit creativity, not business and logic.
That's a really good explanation. And thank you for that detailed response. How you combine both left brain and right brain. I thought that's very innovative because I don't think a lot of companies are thinking like that. How you can use both approaches
Yes.
to have more successful company culture and employees that are more motivated and happier. It requires both left brain and right brain thinking. I want to ask you though, also, like you mentioned, you took 5 companies public, which is a huge accomplishment. Everything about your story is so amazing because like a kid from Tijuana, how many of them, I don't know, I haven't looked up any statistics that like are really successful that come to the United States. Maybe there are, I don't know. And I don't want to put any numbers, but I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking that out loud. Even people in the United States, how many people have launched 5 companies and made 5 companies go public? Very few. So you're probably like in the top 1% of the population. In addition to the fact that you weren't even native to the countries, which is secondary and everything, which the culture as well, as you mentioned before, which makes it even tough. Do you find that initial adversity of learning the language and culture that gave you that motivation to take things to the next level instead of like giving up and being more resilient?
I think it starts with the lack of fear. I think fear is a big word in the business language and anything that we do at any level. There's fear involved. It's not that I have lack of fear, is that I approach fear differently. Sending companies public is difficult and there's a lot of fear in doing it. And it seems like it is an incredible achievement. For me, it's not an incredible achievement. Even when I sent my last company, which was a traditional NASDAQ IPO, I remember one of my friends came and we were at the NASDAQ building and as my friend came, my photo was on the main board, right? Just my photo in front of the ticker symbol and the whole shebang. And I remember the question was, are you enjoying this moment? Is it a big deal? And I said, of course it's not a big deal. What are you talking about? Let's go eat, right? Like nothing. And I think this is important for different things. And it's not the lack of living in the moment. It's not that. It's the fact that happiness, I measure happiness differently. I measure happiness in daily activities. I'm very happy to be speaking with you. And I was as happy when I was in NASDAQ. It gives me the same level of happiness because we spoke before. We have a lot in common. We had an incredible conversation that went into different types of life and family and different things. And I enjoyed it a lot. And I was looking forward to this conversation, just like I was looking forward to ringing the bell at NASDAQ. And when you get happiness in everyday activities, you don't need the big life-changing goals. It just comes. It's a process. And I think the lack of fear, or not the lack of fear, because I am afraid of things, the way you see them. So I think seeing fear as a challenge, it's the start. So you start with that. Then you start losing the fear of failure. That's the second step. I'm not afraid of failing, not being able to take a company public. I'm not afraid of it. Not funding a company. I'm not afraid of it. I've funded a lot of companies and I've failed at funding a lot of companies as well. And then you fail forward and you learn. So that started back at home with my mom telling me, my mom with the crystal ball looking into the future, telling me, you belong in every table. You belong in a boardroom table. You belong in a table with smart people, with professors, with PhDs, with executives, with rich people in the UN or wherever you want, you belong there. And you will work on getting the knowledge, belong there. So if your mom is telling you this when you're 5, 6, 7, by the time you're probably 6, you believe it. Right. And then by the time you're 16, you just think it's going to happen because you're doing everything that you need to do to get there. So this is the way I started with fear. Now, sports, I think, also plays a big part because in sports, you fail constantly. I played basketball and later track, later martial arts. And I wasn't the best in the world at any of those. That means I was losing constantly. This is why I'm very against teachers in the US giving you an F for failure. In Mexico, there's no F for failure. It's a numerical system from 1 to 10. Okay, if you get a certain number, you fail, but they don't call you a failure. So you're never a failure. The same way my mom told me I belong in every table. Imagine if I'm flunking a class in the US and they're telling me I'm a failure because I failed the class. That's horrible. It's the same thing. They're telling you failure is bad and you're a failure. So I didn't have that part. I had the you belong part. Then sports, you fail constantly. You miss a free throw, it's a failure. And you have to look through it and go rebound the damn ball. You fail, and the coach doesn't say, oh, you failed. For the coach, if you don't go for the rebound and try, that's the failure. The trying is not the failure for a good coach. And I had good coaches telling me, if you hustle, you're a winner. If you dive for every ball, if you play defense, you'll make varsity. It doesn't matter if you don't shoot 3-pointers and you're the high scorer. It doesn't matter. I want you diving after every ball. I applied that to basketball, to track, later to martial arts, where you fail constantly because you're always learning something new. You achieve it, something new, and then you feel you know nothing every time you level up. So those things were very important in my development. Of course, books. I read a book a day from 20 to maybe 30 or 28, a book a day. So that was very nonfiction because they're short.
A book a day? That's
book a day. Yeah.
That's
well, remember, I was crossing the border to get to school. So I had to walk, take 2 buses, cross the border, take a trolley and a bus. So it was 4 hours each way. And a nonfiction book takes about 8 hours to read. And I had audiobooks. So I had my Walkman. Remember those? The Walkman with your little I had a yellow Walkman. And I had books on tape. So I would buy books on tape wholesale at wholesale prices. And I would buy encyclopedias of books on tape, like the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the Encyclopedia of Logic, self-help, meditation, like 20 books. And because I was in the bus or walking or on the trolley for so long, I was able to go through one a day. It was the commute, man. The commute was killer. So I took it as university.
So that's still amazing. You were very lucky, I think, that you grew up in a family that was very supportive of you to help you promote a healthy, positive mindset. Because I agree with you, that's very important. I had the exact opposite. I grew up, I had a lot of people, like I did get Fs when I was younger, and it screwed up with my identity. It made me feel like a failure. I had people tell me I was a failure when I was younger. It took me many years to unprogram that and make me to shift to something more positive. So, I mean, now that you had all these different business experiences, and for a lot to manage or to run a company, it costs money. What advice could you give to entrepreneurs starting with zero funding and they have no team, no connection? No, they're not someone like you that sold 5 public companies. How can they get started with no money and they don't have a team behind them?
That was me. I had no connections in the US. I couldn't find a job after I graduated. I didn't know anything about business, finance, or money because in my house, we only talked art. So that was me. What I would tell that entrepreneur is the rules are so different now that we have internet, AI, social media. That's the equalizer. And I've done this myself because the companies that I've sent public, I've sent them from scratch, from zero. No, in our last in my penultimate company, we tried to sell the company and we couldn't sell. We went to the finish line to sell our company for funding. So we were selling it for peanuts to a publicly traded company in order to get stock that we can sell, but also we were looking for $2 million in funding. And we were a startup. We had no money. And then COVID hit at the same time. So we couldn't go to trade shows, we couldn't visit people to pitch or anything else. What I did is I took my phone and I started doing videos. So if you have a phone or a camera and you have internet, social media is free. It's not going to be free forever, but right now it's free. So I would record videos with my phone saying, like a reality show, 15 videos a day, like a lot of videos, short videos, but a lot. This is what I'm doing today. This is what I want to accomplish today. Like a reality, like Big Brother, right? No video was spectacular. I wasn't solving big problems with the video. It was more personality-based videos. We're looking for funding. COVID hit. We're going to be broke and close the company here very soon, right? Videos like that. This is what we're doing. Let me show you the product that we want to do. And then people started watching it. And those people became investors. We decided not to sell the company because the third time that we couldn't sell it, we were almost broke. Because when you sell, it's not like you go into a selling situation and you get the money in a week. It can take 30 days to 90 days. So for those 90 days, they would make us sign a contract that we couldn't shop around for other investors. So we were stuck with that person for 90 days. And then after 90 days, sorry, I couldn't get the money. So we were like, oh my God, we just lost 90 days and we have no money and we just lost traction. So after the third time, I told my partner, I think we should do it by ourselves. We already launched public companies in the past. We don't need an investment banker. We don't need fancy stuff. Let's just try it and do it ourselves. Let's buy a shell that's already public and do a reverse merger. We didn't have money for any of these things, mind you, but we said, okay, let's do it. So then we started looking to raise 50,000 and then 200,000. The 50,000 was to buy the shell. The 200,000 was for the lawyer, for the cleanup of the shell. And the shell is a company that's already public that you're buying. They're usually very expensive, 250,000 to $500,000. But we shopped around and found one for 50,000. We made a lot of mistakes, but we didn't clean it up correctly. We didn't open bank accounts correctly. So we paid for it, but we did it. At the end, we did it by ourselves with the phone. So that's my advice. Turn on the phone, start recording videos of what you're going through, like a reality show. Not selling, entertaining. And then the right people are going to start watching the videos. In my case, these were investment bankers and investors. Once we got a little bit of traction, a little bit of funding, I started running ads in New York on Wall Street only, right? Because we were public already and I needed investors from New York. So instead of just running ads all over the country, I would only hit Wall Street with geo-targeting. So that the investment bankers were the ones and the brokers looking at the videos. So that's the way I did it. That's the way I recommend it. Post those videos everywhere, especially on LinkedIn.
Oh, it's really smart for you to target Wall Street. I don't know how many people think about that. Usually people like do it like, because everything's global now on social media. So you put a video on LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube. Everybody in the world's going to see it. So it's really smart of you to also target people on Wall Street. Wow. So that really worked. You also mentioned earlier that you helped launch like over 1,000 consumer products. What's the common thread of the ones that were like winners, like that sold a lot? Did you find like a common theme? Was it like a certain industry, or was it for men, women, or like the luxury or anything like that?
I started because I bought a company. It was called Bargain Baskets. I bought it in San Diego, California, and it already had 500 accounts, 500 stores, convenience stores with product inside. And in this bargain basket world, you would put metal baskets in the stores. You wouldn't put the product on pegs or on shelves. So my school of thinking of merchandising was put everything off the shelf, not on the shelf. The moment I put a product on the shelf, it would die. But if I put it next to the cash register, it would win. Now, it didn't matter what product it was. It would sell if it was next to the cash register. So that's number one. That's the number one thing that you should think if you're into fast-moving consumer goods, consumer packaged goods. I'm talking apparel, vitamins, beverages, electronics, pet supplies. I did sunglasses. I did hats. I did tools. So it was a program where we put Meyer metal wire baskets next to the cash register. And then I started doing anything that you can put on the counter, anything. So whatever you go see on the counter, not candy, because that was very competitive and I didn't want to carry candy. It was too low, the margins, and I had to go buy it at Costco. And I didn't want to do that. All of the other products we made, we designed, we manufactured in China, and we imported 20 truckloads per month of this stuff. The key was merchandising. It wasn't the product. It was the packaging. It was the signage. It was knowing your target market, which was 16 to 34 male, buying it in a convenience store. Now, there's also problems because the type of product that I was selling was not a turn business. You don't go and buy a hammer every time you go to put gas. So that was my problem, that my products were one and done. Sunglasses. Maybe you forgot your sunglasses and you need some, you broke them, you sat on them, or maybe they're cool because we always stayed on top of fashion. Maybe they're cool and because they're $9.99, you're going to buy an extra pair. But that's an impulse buy still. So we relied on impulse buy, and you don't buy sunglasses the next day. This is why I got into fast-moving consumer goods like beverages and vitamins and snacks. The key there for me was the same, off the shelf. In other words, off the refrigerator. In the refrigerator, now you're competing with Coca-Cola. Doesn't matter what you're selling. If you say, well, I have an energy drink, I'm not competing with Coca-Cola, guess what? You are. Coca-Cola owns and distributes Monster Energy drink. And they have Burn, and they have other drinks that they distribute all over the world. Guess what? You are competing with them, whether you think of it or not. Anything in that refrigerator, water, which is Nestle most of the time, soda, juice, Gatorade, which is Pepsi, you are competing with them. So that's something you have to have in mind when you're launching products. And to this day, I try to keep the products off the shelf, off the refrigerator. You do racks, you do cases of beverage, one on top of the other. We would say if you don't trip, it's not merchandised correctly. You have to trip with the product, or it has to be on the way of your shopping cart. So I had to design 50 products per month, 50 new products per month with 50 new packages, 50 new names. So it was rapid fire. Then I was designing complete programs for 7-Eleven, for Target, and for bigger stores that came to us for their pet supply program or their tools program or their summer program. The Walgreens was a big client of ours, and we designed programs. Maybe we designed 200 or 300 programs just for Walgreens. So a lot of merchandising. This was about 2 or 3 years of incredible schooling for me on merchandising, branding, and product development.
How do you know when a product or even a brand is ready to scale and take it to like the next level?
Okay, that's a phenomenal question. now there's a different play, and I didn't have this when I was launching these brands, which is e-commerce. E-commerce is a game changer. Now, e-commerce after COVID is a greater game changer because I started seeing a trend of more people buying more high-ticket items online. Even big items like sofas and beds are now selling through e-commerce, or desks, monitors, computers that are very heavy.
I've seen people buy cars because they didn't go to dealership.
I bought a car and it was delivered to my house, for example, in a flatbed, right? It was awesome. White glove service. So that's a game changer. Let me tell you the trick, the ultimate trick that I use to see where products are and how we can scale. I test, and you can use this for anything, for books. You can use it for beverages. You can use it for clothing. You can use it for anything. I do testing with meta ads. Let's say that you have a beverage or a book. You would do ads for that beverage, maybe even before you have the beverage. So you haven't spent any money on formula. You haven't spent any money on packaging. You haven't spent any money on manufacturing, which can run you $100,000. That's a lot of money. For $20 a day, you can see if you're going to be successful or not. So start with $20 a day. What I do is I test every aspect of that product, the headline. Of course, more importantly than anything else is the consumer, the audience, right? Building your audience on Meta. For starters, on Meta, or whatever every other platform you're testing. It can be Google Ads or something else, as long as they allow you to target by age group, by geography, etc. So then I run these tests to these different audiences. Maybe I have a product and I don't know if I should target moms or kids or dads or affluent moms or stay-home moms or homeschooled kids or their moms, right? So that's a lot. So I don't target moms. You have to choose one of those, for example. Then I would run ads and I would get the right audience. With the feedback from the right audience, I start building the brand or rebuilding the brand. And then I know I have to scale, same thing. You do whatever you need to do, user-generated content, blog posts, etc. But on your ads, you start scaling. Once you are sure you understand your target market because of your Google ads or your Meta ads, then you take it to retail, because retail is very expensive. To sell a product in the supermarket, in the convenience store, is very expensive. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have round A of funding, because you're going to run out of money.
So now that you've done this for so many years, how's your definition of success has evolved? Like the way success now, 20 or 30 years ago?
No, I changed the way I see success very quickly when I was 28, 29, because my goal was, as I told you, to have water, to have electricity, to retire my mom and my grandma. They needed to retire. So my first job after college, well, my first real job, I couldn't find a job and I had a lot of different jobs. I was in Germany. They moved me to Germany to a software company. I sent 50% of my check back home. And this was enough to retire my family and for them to get all the services and everything that we needed. Buy a car, right? The usual things that you need. Because all my dreams came true when I was 26, I had to change my definition and my goals. So I went back to my original goals that I had as a child, which was I wanted to be a writer and a missionary. I wanted to be a poet and a missionary, but then I changed it to a writer and somebody that does good, not necessarily a missionary, but somebody that does good in the world. And since then, I changed my success into making time instead of money. This is why I quit the software world to become a wholesale distribution, fast-moving consumer goods entrepreneur. because I had a cushy job, corner office, company car, the whole shebang. And I said no, because I was working too much. And I said, why am I working so hard? Getting on planes, traveling, selling, meeting clients, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, traveling on the weekends. And I said, this is crazy. I already have everything that I wanted from money. However, I don't have any time. I'm working all the time. I said, I need to get back to writing, pursuing my passion in getting my time back. I want to go shoot baskets at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of being in on the plane. So that's the way it changed for me. Now, for somebody who's launching their product, their beverage, whatever they're doing, it's much different. And I always tell them it is very difficult to fail. The problem is you try to go for goals that you cannot achieve too early, and then you can fail. Let me give you an example. If you have a beverage or a vitamin company or something that you want to sell in stores and you go to trade shows, it's very easy to fail if you do that because a trade show is going to run you $20,000. It doesn't seem like it, but once you add everything up, it's going to be $20,000 with a small booth. Even if you don't get a booth, it'll be $2,000, $3,000. For a startup, that's life-changing. That's a lot of money for a startup. However, if you take that money and you go to stores with your car, in your trunk, you put your product, and you open 1 or 2 stores per day, which is very easy. My top sales guy could do 20 a day. So 1 or 2 is not trying, but you will do 1 or 2. That's success. So if you measure success by opening 1 or 2 stores, you're going to have a very healthy 90 to 100 stores in 90 days, which is considered a very healthy wholesale distribution brand. Now you can go for another 100. With 200, you can get a distributor in that area. And if you copy paste that in every city, you're going to be an incredibly successful brand without funding even. It's when you want to skip these steps is when you have a problem. Now, if you have funding, you still have to do these things. It's just that you can do it much quicker.
So you mentioned before that you wanted to be a writer. Didn't you also eventually write a book?
Yes. I actually used writing because we talked about creativity. So one of the ways that I advanced in my career was by positioning myself as an industry expert in every field that I've worked in, starting with ERP for the food industry, so software, accounting software, production software, the big softwares. Then I moved to project management software, so I became an expert in that. And then I was a VP. Then it was wholesale distribution, then beverages. So I started with articles, then I started writing books. My first book was Build Your Beverage Empire, and that gave me a lot of clients in the beverage industry because I positioned myself as an expert. So that's key for me. For reaching my goals as an entrepreneur, it was key to position myself as an industry expert. And I've written 20 books. I've published 15 of them so far.
That's really amazing. So you use the books to get clients, and did it also help you get funding or not?
Yes, also to get funding. I send a book, at least one book, to every potential investor.
Wow, that's really amazing. So, and you mentioned before, like you helped raise over $100 million. What do you think a lot of startup founders get wrong when they're pitching to investors?
Oh, they get a lot of things wrong. I was just on a call with a software founder, Fortune 500 executive, and the pitch was horrible. A lot of slides, a lot of talking, not saying the right things. They didn't know their financials. When I asked them like 2 or 3 questions about their financials, they didn't know the answer. So I'm like, what's going on? You don't know the answers to these basic questions? They're going to eat you alive. The VCs that were going for VC money, they're going to eat you alive. So they got the pitch. You have to practice the pitch. Don't use slides if you don't have to. If you already have somebody on the phone or in person or on a Zoom, don't use slides. Talk. Talk like this, like you and I are recording a podcast, but we are on video as we record. I don't have slides for you to see. We are having a conversation. That's number one. I use the slides to get me the appointment or as a follow-up for them to share, but I want to tell the story. So that's number two, become a storyteller. Now you're seeing how this leans into creativity because you have to really have a story and know how to tell it. Whatever story that is, success story, failure and solving a problem because of that failure, that's a story. No story, it's going to be very difficult to get funding. So they get all of these things wrong, relying on statistics. So I've seen business plans which are 90% research. I already know the industry. I can write that research for you. Tell me something I don't know. You have to think, especially if it's smart money, institutional investors, they will know. You're going to have a financial analyst on that industry, whatever it is. And I'm raising capital right now for AI. I'm raising capital for 2 beverage companies. I'm raising capital for a publicly traded company. And as we speak right now, all of them have a story. All of them have 10 slides only. None of them have a written business plan that we give investors, unless it's required by the attorney to write the docs, the legal docs. Sometimes they ask me, but they ask me for 3 pages. They don't ask me for 50 pages. Get your story straight. Practice being a storyteller. Practice speaking without ums. That's very important.
Join Toastmasters or something.
Oh my God. So practice, record yourself and count every time you say count it. Go to Toastmasters if you have to and practice in front of Toastmasters so they can show you how to speak in public. All of these things I would recommend. I've been in meetings because I used to represent investment bankers and VCs. They would call me to go over investments with them or potential investors. I remember one time a kid got on a plane, flew to see some venture capitalists. They invited me in. He shows up, turns the laptop on and turns it around. And the VCs go, bless you, the VCs go, shut your laptop. And then he froze. What do you mean? I close it. What do you mean? Yeah, you're here. You got on the plane. You paid money. You're going to go to a hotel. You're here in person. We want to talk to you, but I have a video. The video explains everything. So why didn't you send the video by email? Why are you here then? It hasn't even started and he's almost crying. It hasn't even started. So those are big problems, right? Those are big problems. The other big problem with modern companies, especially in software, is not getting users before they start pitching. You need users nowadays before you start pitching.
So they don't want to just see an idea. They want to see an actual product that's being used by people.
Yes, even if it's free, but they want proof of concept. For my industry, AI, I'm doing some with AI right now, business to business AI, and with fast moving consumer goods. You can have a proof of concept as a finished product, but it's only sampled. So you didn't go into a big production run. Maybe you spend 10 grand in production instead of 100. That would be your proof of concept, number one. Number two is, are you actually selling it? So that would be a proof of concept in fast-moving consumer good. If it's in software, for example, one of the softwares that I'm working with, and I'm a part owner of this company, is they already work with Boeing doing visual work, 3D renders, animation, things like that. That's going to be gone with AI. And they're doing big work for a big 777 plane, the one you can fit a car in or a tank. And they're having problems with training of staff. And you can't have that plane for a month parked. You're losing a lot of money, millions of dollars a day that you don't use it. So we're developing software to train people visually with AI in order to load these planes, and then software to load the planes so that you measure the cube of every box, how to put it like a Tetris, an AI for Tetris into spaces. So it's business to business. We already have the customer. So that's easier than I have an idea and let's start from zero, right? If I would start from zero with an AI, I would probably try and get 1,000 people for free to use it before I would go pitch it.
Wow, that's really interesting. So how do you determine like the right valuation of a startup? Just like you said, things are changing so fast and
Yeah.
we're going in a different world today.
Yeah. The last time I was in Silicon Valley, I've also been a fund manager, an investment fund manager. So I got invited to the meetings with the VCs, the top VCs in Silicon Valley. And they told me, and this was 8 years ago, they told me a startup with a business plan in Silicon Valley is worth $750,000. Let's call it $1 million now, because it's 8 years later, 9 years later. So it's $1 million. That means you're going to get $200,000 for 20%, which is a lot. But then you're going to be able to work from there. Now, this is Silicon Valley, which is a vacuum. And you have founders, co-founders, you have people that program for stock. So it's a different beast if you're not in Silicon Valley. Now with AI, I program with AI. It's not difficult to program now for anybody. You could probably start and get proof of concept and get your idea to be worth more in software. In fast-moving consumer goods, in beverages, it depends on how unique your beverage is in your business model. If your idea is to do an energy drink that you're going to sell like everybody else in a convenience store, I'm probably not even going to take the project because it's not going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, aren't there already like 100 different energy drinks out there? Like,
More than 100. I've done maybe 20 myself, right? So it's not going to work. Now, let me give you an example. One of my projects is called the Eye Drink. It's for eyes. It's developed by an eye doctor. We sell it inside of the eye doctor's offices, right? We are going to hit eye doctors for investment. And later, we're going to hit pharmacy companies, not VCs, but big pharma, for investment because they want to sell in these shops. They want to sell in eye doctors' offices. So we're not going to go to traditional venture capital or even beverage venture capital. We're not going to go to trade shows, traditional beverage and retail shows. Guess where we go? Eye doctor shows and trade shows, where we are the only beverage. We are a blue ocean, no competition. And the spokesperson is a doctor, the founder. Not only that, we are selling 10 times more in a doctor's offices than what we would sell in a 7-Eleven. So that's the story. When I tell this story to investors, they go, where? Give me, what's the valuation? Let me invest. The valuation is much higher than a regular beverage company because it's truly unique. Now, can somebody copy it? Absolutely. Anybody can copy the formula, but you need an eye doc. Now you're not going to be first to market because we already beat you to market, right? You're going to be second or third or fourth or fifth. That's important. So when I see these type of businesses, those are the ones that I like. They have a built-in market. I don't have to go and compete with $1 trillion market cap, which is in the refrigerator at stores. I'm competing with zero. And then if the doctor tells you, drink one of these a day, it feels to you as just what the doctor ordered. It's not just a TV ad. Your doctor told you need it for your dry eyes, your tired eyes, itchy eyes, or whatever else you have. If you want to get better, you're going to take it. Just if the doctor tells you you need to take omega, you're probably going to take omega. It's not difficult to take omega, right? If they tell you need to exercise, that's more difficult. But if they tell you take this pill, drink this beverage, that's much easier. So that's what gets you the big valuation. Now, beverages have big valuations to start with. 10 times sales, not EBITDA or net, 10 times sales, gross sales. So if you sell $1 million, you can have a valuation of $10 million. Now, by comparison, if you're a beverage distributor and you sell $1 million, you'll probably have a valuation of $1 million or $2 million. So, right? The
Makes a big difference.
comparison is amazing. So beverage, liquor, non-liquor, so ready to drink, spirits have a big valuation. AI has a big valuation right now. So those are the industries that I've always been interested in, where you can get big valuations.
So what do you think is something like the red flags that investors look for that kill deals pretty quickly?
I think the red flags are, I will capture 1% of the market. That a leave the table red flag. The market is $250 billion for the beverage industry. We only are going to get 1%. If we are successful, everybody here will become multimillionaires. Okay, I've been in these meetings. Okay, what does that look like? What do you mean? What does that look like? 1%. What is it? How many stores do you need? How many employees? What's the warehouse like? I don't know. Because if you knew, you wouldn't say, I'm going to capture 1%. You would give me a number, and you would give me in so many years, and you would tell me, I need so many stores, and I need to sell so many cans per store per day to achieve it. That's a green flag, right? The red flag is I'm going to capture 1%. The green flag is I know what I need to get to whatever number, right? That's a green flag. Another red flag is sign an NDA. Investors don't sign NDAs. They wouldn't be able to get another pitch if they signed your NDA. It's the last pitch they'll ever hear because your idea is not unique. I'm sorry. I've never heard a unique idea in 20 years. It's something that came from something else. Always. It's something that came from something else. A problem, a solution, another beverage, etc. When people tell me nobody has done this, I tell them, give me 30 seconds to do a Google search and I will find 5 companies. They say, I didn't see it at the store. That's different. Maybe you didn't see it in the store because it failed 5 times because there's no market for your beverage. I will show you the 5 companies that failed. I probably know 5 companies that failed because I worked with them and we couldn't make it, right, with that idea. So that's another red flag. We are the only one. Nobody is doing it. Yes, somebody's doing it. Maybe somebody's not doing it well. Maybe somebody failed. Maybe you tell me I have a beverage and I am delivering it to lawyer office buildings only. I've never heard that. So I don't care about what beverage it is. Let's talk about your distribution. I love it. Let's do that. Let's sell to lawyers, right? They can afford it. They can prepay you. They can give you the credit card. And then whatever you sell, you're going to be successful because you have the channel. So those are the red flags that I look for a lot in the beverage industry. In AI, I've sat down in about 15 AI pitches. None of them was AI. None of them was real AI. It was, we will get to AI. For example, even the company I just told you about, it's not AI. We will get to AI. It's a profitable company selling over $1 million already. They're already selling over $1 million to Boeing. It is not AI. It is technology, but not AI. We have to move to AI. So I'm clear about that. But these companies come telling me they are AI. They're not AI. So you have to be careful as an entrepreneur to pitch correctly what you have at the right time. So that's another big red flag. Not knowing your financials. If you show me financials, it's because you know them and I can ask you questions. How did you come up with this number? What does it mean? What's behind it? What's the cost that's behind this? If you don't know that, don't put the number. It's okay not to put the number and say, we haven't figured it out. I respect that more than a fake number.
So now that you've worked with so many like different brands, And thank you so much for sharing about all these different experiences. What, in your opinion, what makes a brand stick in consumers' minds versus like seeing something that, that's on the shelf and it's gone 2 weeks later or whatever, 2 months later?
Oh man, that's such a great question. What stays in consumers' minds? This is the holy grail. You hit it. That's forget everything that we said in the entire podcast. Okay, on this question, this is going to change your life. Yeah, this is going to change your life as an author. Even if you write fiction, science fiction, fantasy, if you develop a beverage, an AI, whatever you're doing, this is what I count as you win. This is when you win. When you can establish an emotional connection with the consumer, you win. Let me repeat that. What is the holy grail? Is the question. What is the one thing for success? What is what you have to do to be successful, to stick, you ask, to stick in the consumer's mind? And the answer is to develop an emotional connection with the consumer. How you do that is your secret sauce, but that's what you want. I do it with storytelling. Because that's what I know. Now I use not only writing, I use imagery, I use AI, and I use a lot of graphic painters, graphic designers. For example, I'm working on another project which is inspired in Japanese culture, and we're using manga style of characters that will go in every can. The brand name is going to be called Kalmara, inspired by Zen. But in order to get the consumer, which is a young consumer that likes Japan, so these are kids, young men and kids who are obsessed with Japan, with manga, with anime, with Japanese culture, with ramen, with sushi, with everything Japan and Asia also. So to do that, we want to tell a story, and we're using animation, not only words, but actual animation. We're using character design, and we're using backstory for each character. My first character is a samurai female called Blossom, the Blossom Warrior. And I already saw the first edition of the Warrior, and it's fantastic. One in every can. And we're going to have trading cards. There's going to be graphic novels behind it, because we want the consumer to participate in the brand, not just to drink it, but to do cosplay. And we'll have contests with the best cosplay. We want to go to comic conventions and invite people to participate, the consumers. So that's how I do it in beverages. And then your listeners have to do the same in their niche.
Oh, thank you. That's really good advice. I like that a lot. And it definitely, as you said, if you don't create that emotional connection, it's hard to really sell at scale, because people are just not going to jive with it because there's no connection.
Yeah.
I also want to kind of circle back to you said before, like when you were saying about how can people put themselves out there, entrepreneurs can start, you're talking about creating videos, put them on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is probably the biggest social media platform out there. And a lot of entrepreneurs, business leaders, CEOs, executives, a lot of people are on LinkedIn these days.
Yeah.
What do you think that how business leaders, executives, entrepreneurs not using LinkedIn correctly? You think just posting every day? Some people either post a quick post, like a self-help post, or a tip or advice post. Do you think that's really effective way of using LinkedIn? Or I think I see a lot of people, they do. It's, in my mind, it's not really that effective. People just create this generic posts, and a lot of people not even writing their own posts out. They're using the AI.
Yeah, that's right. There's levels. There's different levels to this. And I'm an early adopter of LinkedIn, and I use it a lot. But there's levels. You don't need to have 1 million followers on LinkedIn. That's the difference. You don't need 1 million views to your posts. So you're right, people are not using LinkedIn correctly, and there's levels. When I post generic posts, leadership, HR, things like that, those are not my bread and butter posts. Those are posts for credibility more than anything else. And I can get 1 million views a week. So I can get the views, but it doesn't mean anything if I'm not getting the right avatar to look at my post. And I don't need them to look at my post. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. However, you do need to post, because if you don't post, LinkedIn will not show you to the right people. So you do need to post. You don't need to post every day for starters, but you do need to post. So these are the levels that I would say you need to go through to attract big ticket customers and investors, because I use it for investment as well. And I'll tell you how. Number one is you have to understand that it's your website. Your LinkedIn profile is your website. Use SEO, for God's sake. Use SEO. It's a website. You need a headline, not CEO, not brand manager, not owner. Headline. It's not a title. It's called headline. Your headline can be long. For example, if you're a lawyer, you might put something like, if you've been in an accident, call me first. Don't make these 5 mistakes. And then you list the 5 mistakes in your bio. That would be a killer bio for a lawyer or whatever practice they specialize, right? That would be a killer. If you put lawyer, it's not the same than if you put, if you've been in an accident, or how much is your case worth? I know that's a winning ad because I see hundreds of thousands of dollars every week behind that ad on television. So I know that's a winning headline before I even start. What is your case worth? So I would start with that. I would put that as my headline. What is your case worth? Ask the lawyer or something like that. Line, subheadline, just like SEO, use your keyword 2% to 3.5% of the time. So for every 100 words, your keyword word or phrase is there, let's say 2 times or 3 times. Use everything on LinkedIn. Everything. The projects, the publications, everything, not just your bio. Have a call to action. To keep that example, the call to action is download this case study of cases. I've used white papers from the first job I told you, I've used white papers as my funnel. And they still work to this day for my publicly traded companies. White papers. Download the white paper. And you assure that it's your right niche, that white paper. For example, I used to have a business, how to export to Mexico. That's easy. How to export to Mexico. Download the 5-step guide for free. And then I would take people, brands, beverage brands to Mexico. So that was my headline. I got them from LinkedIn. I got my customers from LinkedIn. So that's number one. Number two is post. If you're not going to post every day, just once a week, post a solution to your avatar's problem. Don't post, I offer XYZ. Post a solution or a problem. Use an image. Doesn't have to be original. You can use ChatGPT, that's fine, but use an image. Even if it's an image and then text, that's fine also. Why? Because we are visual animals. And it's very difficult to rank or get eyeballs on just the text, like on Twitter. So make sure that you're using an image, and it's okay to put your headline on that image. Actually, I would encourage you to put your headline on the image to test it. That's the way I test headlines, by putting them on images. So that's number two. Number three, groups. This is the secret. Groups. Start a group and invite your target market. So if you're a lawyer, don't start a group for lawyers. Start a group for people that are injured and doctors that can treat them. So then you get your network. If you're a beverage company, for your consumer, for example, dry eyes, you do a dry eyes group, or dry mouth, or low energy, or testosterone, or whatever your niche is, right? Focus, or whatever your solution is. Same thing. If you're selling to moms, maybe it's something educational, your group. Let me give you an example. I like writing, and I wanted to hang out with other authors. Just hang out, no business, just hang out. So I started a group for authors, not to sell books, This is different because then I would start a group for readers. So this is the perfect example. Most of the authors put the post of their book, buy my book. And I tell them, dude, this is not for readers. This is for authors. If you put a tip for authors, you're going to get followers. You're going to get connections. If you say buy my book, it's not going to work. So I just did it to network. I did another one for investors. And I have 50, by the way, I have 100,000 people in the first group that I told you, 100,000. I have 50,000 in my investor group, venture capital and private equity group on LinkedIn. And I have 50,000 people. I have investors and entrepreneurs that want funding. So whenever I need something, I can go to the group and I have access. LinkedIn gives me access to that 50,000 people. I have another group for, you guessed it, beverages and fast-moving consumer goods. I have 45,000 founders and investors and distributors, retailers, etc. So that's the way you use LinkedIn. And then you do email to connect with people, to your target audience, and to pitch them. And I've connected with Miller Beer, 5 Hour Energy, and gotten their business, right? Coca-Cola, mergers and acquisitions, vice president, like top people. And of course, a lot of business from entrepreneurs, small investors, etc. So it's very easy. It's a soft pitch. People are open to it now. Don't spam. And I do it with autoresponders. So think of a sequential autoresponder. First step, you go and you like their stuff. So I only do it with people that posted in the last 90 days. This is also a hack. I only do it with people that post in the post 90 days, because I know they're on LinkedIn. They go in, they have it on their phone. So I target them in the industry that I want. I connect with them. I wait 2 days and I like everything that they post. This is software, by the way. I don't do it manually. And then I have the software do a request for connecting, no pitch, and then a white paper, something of value. Hey, would you like to, or I give them a book, either printed and I put it in the mail if they're an investor, or ebook if I'm just networking and I just want a lot of subscribers. It doesn't have to be your book. When I didn't have a book of my own, I would give them my favorite book or the latest book or the book that inspired me. So it doesn't have to be your book. It can be somebody else's book. And then I do the pitch after that. Hey, do you want to get into a Zoom call or something like that? So that's the way I use it. And that's the way I've got companies public, customers. People come to me on LinkedIn. They see a post about something that I know, like beverages, like the top investments of 2024. Oh, I like your post. Can you advise me in my beverage company? Just like that, easy.
Well, thank you. That's really great advice. And it's amazing that as I said, like, you're such an amazing story. And you're very talented in many areas. A lot of people that are left brain, like developers and stuff, they don't think very creatively like you. Like, you're a very creative person to come up with these LinkedIn ideas.
That's where we circle back, full circle, right? Full circle to creativity. Now, I think you and your audience sees where the creativity comes in and why you need to have creativity in your life. You need to read science fiction. You need to watch movies that are creative, that are out there, completely out of this world, out of their mind even, so that your brain can start developing, and then you come up with these creative solutions to problems of funding, of lead generation, etc., instead of just the same old thing as everybody's doing.
To go back to creativity, and you love being writing, you wrote a book called Marketing Karma. What exactly does that mean, marketing karma?
Sure. I wrote the book Marketing Karma because if I was in India or in China, in the Orient, I would call the book Marketing. No, I'm sorry. If I was in those countries, in India, in the Orient, I would call it Karma. I would call the book Karma, not Marketing Karma. The reason I call it Marketing Karma, it's because we're in the West and people don't understand what karma is. In India, they understand what karma is. I don't have to explain it. So I call marketing karma is karma for the West. And I wrote it because I see a lot of people pitching without giving value. And they never learned how to give value before they pitch. And marketing karma teaches those people how to create value, how to create communities. And then they will bring everything that you need. Not only communities in business, but also communities in life, in your family. How to be a pillar in your family, where everybody in your family loves you, calls you, they rely on you. When they list people for their emergency contact, you're always their emergency contact. Why do you need to be that person? Marketing karma. When all these clients come to you and they tell me, I know you, I know how you work. Why? And they say, I don't need a pitch. Here's my credit card. Because that's the way it happens to me. I don't pitch. People call me and give me their credit card. And then I start working with if I'm mentoring them, if I'm working in a mentoring basis, or it's like a fractional CMO or a beverage client. I don't have a pitch. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have anything. I have free webinars. I have books. If you can't afford the book, I will give you the book for free. Of course, it's in the library. It's in Libby and other places. It's pirated, so I've seen it everywhere for free. I even see audios on YouTube for free of my books. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. That's marketing karma. If you're getting something from it, that's my payment. I call it marketing. I call it karma coins. If I give my book to somebody for free because they can't afford it, they're in a tight budget, they don't read books, it's not part of their thing, and I give them a book and it changes their life. Maybe it gets them to rehab because I have inspirational books. Maybe it gets them to rehab. You think I care about the $10 for the book? I don't care. I got my karma coins. I feel awesome that person fixed their life. When people meet me in the beverage trade shows and all of these beverages, they come with my book, so proud, and they have it headlined and they have comments highlighted. They have sticky notes. So the book is double the size. I don't care. I don't care if they work with me or not. I don't care if they paid for the book or if it was, I don't care. It is awesome. One person I met was doing water in Africa. So he was putting wells in Africa after reading my books. That's amazing. You're getting clean water, communities in Africa, because it inspired you from my book. That's what marketing karma is about. How to work, giving things away, giving knowledge away. Like now, I want to give as much knowledge away as I can fit into every minute. And this is why sometimes I speak fast and everything is spilling out so fast, because I want to create a lot of value for your listeners. And I do it without expecting anything in return. However, karma doesn't work that way. Karma will give you something in return, whether you want it or not. It will give you something in return. Might be love, might be it's not always money. In the West, it's money. In the East, it can be a better life, a better second life, a better future life. In this lifetime, for me, it's been happiness and love, and yes, money, because I get business from it as well. So that's the big and long explanation about marketing karma.
Or if somebody had a question about our interview today or they're interested in working with you, what are the best ways that they can reach out to you?
They go to jorgeolson.com, JORGEOLSON.com. Just put your name and email there, and you'll be in my newsletter where I send you videos and audios. There's some words as well, some written stuff, but a lot of videos and audios as well on everything that we talked about. That's the best way. And my phone and contact information will be there as well.
Jorge, I really enjoyed talking with you, but we could probably talk for a few more hours. There's so much more things we can talk about. Maybe we'll have you come in for another show, like a part 2 of this. But we kind of have to wrap up our conversation today. Is there any final words or message you'd like to leave our audience with?
I always like to thank the audience for spending time with us because, as I mentioned, the number one commodity is time. And thank you for spending your time with us.
Jorge, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all about your experiences with wisdom. I mean, I think you're an incredible person. And I said there's so much more to tell because I think we just cracked the surface about your knowledge, wisdom, experience. There's so much more to talk about. I think if you're open to another session, we can talk so much more. But thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure. I really enjoyed listening to you and learning a lot from you. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience also learned a lot from the session. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
You're very welcome, and you're very kind.